Henry III's early days. Henry III of England, who reigned from 1216 to 1272, occupies a pivotal position in English history. His long and eventful reign was characterized by significant challenges, including a tumultuous minority, internal conflicts, and the Barons' War. Nevertheless, it was also a period marked by substantial developments in governance and the consolidation of royal authority. Let's explore Henry's background, early life, his minority, and early reign. Background. Henry III was born on October 1, 1207, at Winchester Castle to King John of England and Isabella of Angoulême. His birth placed him in the line of two influential dynasties, the Normans and Angevins, whose intertwined histories defined much of medieval Europe. The Norman conquest of England in 1066 had established a legacy of centralized authority, while the Angevin Empire extended England's influence across vast swathes of France. Henry inherited this complex legacy of consolidation and conflict, which would shape the challenges of his reign. King John's rule had been fraught with tension and failure. His controversial policies, including heavy taxation and the arbitrary confiscation of lands, alienated many of his barons and undermined the monarchy's credibility. This hostility culminated in the signing of the Magna Carta in 1215, a document that sought to limit royal authority and safeguard baronial rights. However, John's subsequent rejection of its terms plunged England into the First Barons' War, a civil conflict that left the kingdom deeply fractured and vulnerable to external threats. Isabella of Angoulême, Henry's mother, added further complexity to his inheritance. Her marriage to John in 1200 had been politically motivated, designed to secure John's control over the Angoulême region in France. However, John's loss of Normandy in 1204 and his deteriorating relations with the French crown diminished the strategic significance of this alliance. Isabella's strong-willed nature and ambitious pursuits earned her both admirers and detractors. After John's death in 1216, she returned to France and married Hugh X of Lusignan, creating a new power base that occasionally intersected with English affairs. Her departure from England left young Henry without a maternal figure at court, further complicating his upbringing. The political and military instability of John's reign profoundly shaped Henry's early life. John's excommunication by Pope Innocent III in 1209 had left the kingdom in spiritual crisis, alienating the clergy and weakening the crown's moral authority. His military defeats, particularly at the hands of King Philip II of France, further eroded his reputation and cost England key territories in France. By the time of John's death in October 1216, England was on the verge of collapse. Prince Louis of France controlled much of the kingdom, and many English barons supported his claim to the throne, casting doubt on Henry's succession. At just 9 years old, Henry ascended to the throne under precarious circumstances. His coronation at Gloucester Cathedral on October 28, 1216, was hastily arranged to secure his legitimacy. The use of a simple gold circlet as a crown, due to the royal regalia being in enemy hands, symbolized the fragility of his position. Despite these challenges, Henry's youth and innocence proved advantageous. His supporters, led by William Marshal, the Earl of Pembroke, portrayed him as a symbol of renewal and unity, contrasting sharply with the controversial legacy of his father. The early support for Henry's reign was rooted in the loyalty of key figures like Marshal, who assumed the role of regent and worked tirelessly to stabilize the kingdom. Marshal's military prowess and diplomatic acumen were instrumental in rallying support for the young king. Under his leadership, the royalist forces achieved critical victories, including the Battle of Lincoln in 1217, which marked a turning point in the First Barons' War. The subsequent Treaty of Lambeth in September 1217 formalized peace and ensured Henry's position on the throne. The broader context of Henry's inheritance was one of political fragmentation and uncertainty. England's relations with neighbouring powers were strained, with Scotland and Wales posing ongoing threats to the kingdom's stability. Domestically, the barons remained divided, with some continuing to resist royal authority even after the resolution of the First Barons' War. These divisions underscored the challenges Henry would face in asserting his authority and governing effectively. Henry's childhood was marked by the efforts of his regents to safeguard the monarchy while preparing him for kingship. His education emphasized governance, military strategy, and theology, reflecting the multifaceted responsibilities of a medieval ruler. The regents also sought to cultivate alliances with the Church, recognizing its crucial role in legitimizing Henry's rule. Pope Honorius III's strong support for Henry provided a spiritual foundation for his reign, helping to dissuade potential challengers and reinforce the monarchy's divine authority. By the time Henry reached maturity, he had witnessed the complexities of governance during one of the most turbulent periods in English history. The legacy of his father's failures, combined with the precarious circumstances of his minority, shaped his understanding of kingship and the delicate balance between royal prerogative and baronial cooperation. These formative experiences laid the groundwork for the challenges and achievements that would define his reign. Early life and challenges. The minority, 1216 to 1226. Henry's early reign was dominated by the efforts of his regents to stabilize the kingdom during a time of significant upheaval. Chief among these was William Marshal, the Earl of Pembroke, a seasoned warrior and statesman whose leadership proved instrumental in securing Henry's throne. Marshal, renowned for his loyalty and strategic acumen, took on the role of regent and effectively governed in Henry's name during the early years of his minority. He faced the daunting task of restoring royal authority in a kingdom fractured by rebellion and foreign invasion. One of Marshal's most significant contributions was the reissuance of the Magna Carta in 1216 and again in 1217. These revised versions of the Charter omitted the most contentious clauses that had previously incited conflict between the monarchy and the barons, such as the security clause that allowed barons to enforce the agreement by force. Instead, Marshal focused on provisions that addressed grievances related to feudal rights and royal abuses of power. This strategic compromise reassured moderate barons while preserving the monarchy's authority, laying a foundation for the kingdom's recovery. The military campaigns of this period were equally crucial in securing Henry's reign. The Battle of Lincoln in May 1217, often referred to as a Lincoln Fair, marked a decisive victory for the royalist forces against the rebel barons and their French allies. Marshal's forces, bolstered by loyal knights and regional levies, successfully lifted the siege of Lincoln Castle, routing the opposition and capturing key rebel leaders. This triumph not only bolstered the morale of Henry's supporters but also underscored the regent's ability to command loyalty and inspire confidence in the monarchy's future. Following the victory at Lincoln, the naval Battle of Sandwich in August 1217 further consolidated the royalist position. Led by Hubert de Burgh, the English fleet intercepted and defeated a French convoy attempting to bring reinforcements to Prince Louis. The capture of the French flagship and the death of prominent French commanders dealt a severe blow to Louis's campaign. These victories forced Louis to abandon his claim to the English throne, culminating in the Treaty of Lambeth in September 1217. This agreement formally ended the First Barons' War and secured Henry's position as king, providing a much-needed period of peace and stability. The death of William Marshal in 1219 marked a turning point in Henry's early reign. With Marshal's passing, the responsibility of governance shifted to Hubert de Burgh, who emerged as a dominant figure in the Regency Council. De Burgh's tenure as justiciar was characterized by efforts to strengthen royal administration and reinforce the kingdom's defences. Recognizing the vulnerability of England's coastline, he implemented measures to fortify key ports and castles, ensuring the monarchy's territorial integrity. De Burgh also sought to curb corruption within the royal administration, instituting reforms to improve the efficiency of tax collection and judicial processes. However, de Burgh's centralization of power and perceived favoritism occasionally provoked tensions among the barons. His preference for rewarding loyalists with key positions and land grants alienated some factions, creating friction within the Regency Council. These internal conflicts foreshadowed the broader challenges Henry would face as he sought to assert his authority in the years to come. Despite these tensions, de Barre's efforts laid the groundwork for a more stable and effective royal government, enabling Henry to transition from a vulnerable monarch to a more assertive ruler as he came of age. During this period, Henry's education and personal development were carefully overseen by his regents and advisors. He received instruction in governance, law, and military strategy, equipping him with the skills necessary to navigate the complexities of kingship. His upbringing also emphasized his role as a divinely appointed ruler, fostering a strong sense of personal piety that would later influence his approach to governance. Henry's exposure to the challenges of leadership during his minority instilled in him a deep understanding of the importance of compromise and collaboration, lessons that would resonate throughout his reign. Henry's minority was also a time of significant diplomatic activity. The regents worked to repair relations with neighboring powers, including Scotland and Wales, through treaties and strategic marriages. These efforts were aimed at reducing external threats and fostering a more stable geopolitical environment. Additionally, the regents cultivated a close alliance with the papacy, which played a crucial role in legitimizing Henry's rule. Pope Honorius III's unwavering support for Henry helped to dissuade opposition and reinforce the monarchy's spiritual authority. Henry's education and upbringing were carefully managed to prepare him for the responsibilities of kingship. He was tutored in governance, military strategy, and theology, instilling in him a strong sense of personal piety and an appreciation for the intricacies of medieval politics. The regents emphasized the importance of kingship as a divinely ordained role, fostering Henry's belief in the sacred nature of his authority. Despite the successes of the regency, Henry's minority was not without its challenges. The financial strain of maintaining royal authority, coupled with lingering baronial discontent, underscored the fragility of the monarchy. The regents faced periodic unrest from factions dissatisfied with their policies, as well as external threats from Scotland and Wales, which required constant vigilance and strategic diplomacy. By the time Henry was declared of age in 1227, the efforts of the regency had laid a solid foundation for his reign. The resolution of the First Barons' War, the restoration of royal finances, and the consolidation of authority within the kingdom ensured that Henry inherited a more stable realm. However, the challenges of his minority highlighted the ongoing need for compromise and reform, lessons that would influence his approach to governance in the years to come. In sum, Henry's early life and the efforts of his regents to stabilize the kingdom during his minority were critical in shaping the trajectory of his reign. The strategic leadership of figures like William Marshal and Hubert de Burgh, combined with decisive military victories and pragmatic governance, ensured the monarchy's survival during one of the most precarious periods in English history. These formative years not only secured Henry's throne but also laid the foundation for the challenges and achievements that would define his long and eventful reign. Henry III's early reign, advisors' influence, conflicts with France, and internal political struggles. Henry officially assumed control of his government in January 1227, although debates persisted about whether he should be considered a minor until his 21st birthday in 1228. His early reign presented significant challenges, encompassing the influence of advisors on policymaking, prolonged conflicts with France over ancestral territories, and internal political struggles that tested the stability of his rule. The role of advisors and governance in Henry's early reign. At the start of Henry III's reign, England was recovering from the tumultuous period of his father, King John, and the subsequent regency. Hubert de Burgh, who had played a crucial role in protecting Henry's throne during his minority, emerged as a dominant figure in his government. Rewarded generously for his loyalty, Hubert received substantial estates and was appointed justiciar for life. His position allowed him to exercise considerable influence over Henry's early governance. Hubert's administration focused on stabilizing the kingdom and consolidating royal authority. He implemented reforms to strengthen governance and sought to bring rebellious barons under control. Hubert's policies aimed to reinforce the power of the monarchy, improve the administration of justice, and secure revenues necessary for effective governance. However, his growing wealth and power led to resentment among rival factions within the royal court. These rivalries set the stage for political disputes that would later undermine his position and contribute to his eventual downfall. Hubert's dominance in court also reflected the broader dynamics of royal governance in medieval England, where the monarch often relied on powerful individuals to implement their authority. His reforms, though aimed at strengthening royal control, inadvertently alienated other key figures within the nobility, fostering distrust and resentment that weakened the cohesion of Henry's administration. Conflicts with France, the struggle for ancestral lands. A central issue during Henry's early reign was the loss of English territories in France. The catastrophic military failures of King John had resulted in the forfeiture of Normandy and other key regions to Philip II of France in 1204. Determined to reclaim these lands, Henry faced formidable challenges. By 1221, the French crown's income had nearly doubled, providing it with superior financial and military resources compared to England. This economic disparity placed Henry at a disadvantage as he sought to recover the family's ancestral lands. The death of Louis VIII in 1226 created an opening for Henry to reassert English claims. The new French king, 12-year-old Louis IX, faced significant internal opposition, including revolts among the nobility. Encouraged by his advisors, Henry launched a military campaign in France in 1230. However, poor strategic planning, logistical failures, and a lack of local support rendered the campaign unsuccessful. The costly expedition ended with a truce that lasted until 1234, leaving Henry unable to achieve his objectives. Henry's ambitions in France were further hindered by England's limited financial resources and the divided loyalties of the Anglo-Norman aristocracy. Many of the barons who held estates in both England and France were reluctant to support a prolonged conflict, fearing the loss of their lands or alliances. This divided support not only weakened Henry's campaigns but also underscored the complexity of English-French relations during this period. Internal political struggles, the fall of Hubert de Burgh. Hubert de Burgh's prominence in Henry's government eventually became a liability. His accumulation of power and wealth alienated many influential barons, who saw him as a threat to their own influence. In 1232, Hubert was ousted from power and replaced by Peter de Roche, a former bishop of Winchester. De Roche adopted a more confrontational style of governance, seizing estates from political opponents and consolidating his faction's authority. Peter de Roche's aggressive policies provoked widespread discontent. The arbitrary seizure of estates and the favoritism shown to his allies exacerbated tensions within the nobility. This aggressive consolidation of power culminated in a civil conflict led by Richard Marshal, one of England's most powerful barons. The rebellion exposed deep divisions within the kingdom and highlighted the fragility of Henry's authority. It also revealed the risks inherent in relying on divisive advisors, whose actions could destabilize the broader political structure. Archbishop Edmund of Abingdon intervened in 1234 to broker a peace agreement. As part of the settlement, Peter de Roche was dismissed, and Henry pledged to govern in a more conciliatory manner. This episode underscored the delicate balance of power between the monarchy, the nobility, and the church, all of which played critical roles in the governance of medieval England. The dismissal of de Roche marked a turning point in Henry's reign, as he sought to chart a new course of governance free from the dominance of a single minister. Personal rule and its challenges. After the removal of Peter de Roche, Henry III resolved to rule personally, without relying on a dominant minister. This period of personal governance, which lasted for 24 years, was characterized by efforts to reinforce royal authority and navigate the kingdom's persistent challenges. Despite Henry's attempts to assert control, his reign continued to be shaped by external and internal pressures. Henry's personal rule required him to engage directly with the complex network of baronial interests and local governance structures. This hands-on approach presented opportunities for the king to strengthen his authority, but it also exposed him to the challenges of balancing competing interests. The lack of a trusted, unifying advisor meant that Henry had to navigate the political landscape more independently, relying on his own judgment to address disputes and crises. The loss of Brittany to Louis IX in November 1234 demonstrated the ongoing difficulties Henry faced in reclaiming ancestral territories. Nevertheless, he remained committed to restoring England's influence in France, a goal that shaped much of his foreign policy. Henry's efforts to bolster his position often involved diplomatic maneuvers, including marriage alliances and negotiations with other European powers. These efforts, though sometimes successful, were not enough to offset the kingdom's military and economic disadvantages. Meanwhile, the internal struggles of his early reign laid the groundwork for enduring tensions between the monarchy and the nobility. These tensions were exacerbated by the financial demands of war and the need for royal revenues, which often required concessions from the barons. The evolving relationship between the crown and the nobility during this period would have lasting implications for the development of English governance. Conclusion. Henry III's early reign encapsulates the complexities of medieval English governance. Influenced by powerful advisors, burdened by the challenges of reclaiming lost territories in France, and marked by political discord within his kingdom, Henry's rule set the tone for future developments in English politics. While his decision to govern personally brought a degree of stability, the challenges he faced underscored the inherent difficulties of maintaining royal authority during a period of significant change. These experiences would leave a lasting imprint on Henry's legacy and the evolution of the English monarchy. By examining the multifaceted challenges of his reign, from the influence of advisors like Hubert de Burgh and Peter de Roche to the broader geopolitical struggles with France, we gain a deeper understanding of the medieval monarchy's complexities. Henry's reign serves as a case study in the interplay between personal ambition, institutional constraints, and the unpredictable dynamics of medieval politics. Thanks for listening. Like, comment, and subscribe to Medieval Chronicles 1066 for more journeys back to the Middle Ages. Stay curious.